Hi, I'm Jenna.
And I'm Kelley, and this is the Rebuild the Construction Mindset podcast, where we focus on embracing new ideas and methods with enthusiasm and excitement in the construction industry.
Our goal is to bridge the gap between all professions that touch the industry and create a platform for different perspectives. From suppliers to end users, we want all voices to be heard.
We're back in person, Jenna and
Yeah, no more airports. Woo! For now.
we haven't been in person
Since the first one. First two
episodes, yes. So this is our third in-person chit-chat with each other. So, yay.
So what have you been up to? You got some Disney stuff on?
Oh, yes, I have Disney World stuff on. We went to Disney. Well, we didn't really go. Well, we went to Epcot for Kinsley's Make-A-Wish.
Good.
So she met 3 penguins. Well, we all met a penguin, but 3 penguins and a sea lion, which her wish was to meet a penguin and a seal, but she doesn't yet know that there's a difference between a seal and a penguin's, or seal and a sea lion. There's a much big difference between seal and a penguin. So she met a sea lion instead.
Good.
But yeah, we did that. She just wanted them to keep bringing her penguins, but we did that at SeaWorld Orlando. We were out there for a week, so we did that. What else did we do? I went to a new state a couple weeks ago. I got Michigan crossed off my state list.
And was that a top one for you?
No.
Okay. Not that Michigan, nothing against Michigan, but Hawaii would probably be up there before Michigan for me.
Well, I already got Hawaii. So
Yeah.
I've had Hawaii. I got Hawaii when I was like in first grade. So we're straight up good there. No, it was because the Lean Construction Institute Congress was in Detroit this year.
That's right.
But I got super sick like second day of Congress and basically didn't attend anything from that point on. So then I just flew home. But I had food in Detroit and I slept there. So I visited Michigan.
Did you go to 8 Mile?
No.
Dang.
No. I did meet a lady there. She was my Uber driver. And she was telling me that she was making food for like Sunday dinner. She's making like 50 steaks, so much stuff, crazy. And she's like telling me how she's gonna make sure she gets her own food this time because she cooked for her birthday like a month ago, and not one single person at her birthday party at her house left her food.
I thought you were gonna tie this in with like Eminem somehow. I'm waiting for you to tell me like my Uber driver was Eminem's grandma, and I was like, dang.
No.
Okay.
I just like, she was very entertaining, and she was just telling me how like no one saved her food at her own birthday, and she cooked all of the food. Like she cooked ribs, chicken, steaks, like everything, made like mashed potato, all of it.
The audacity of people.
And she's like, people just took extra and like took it home to eat, didn't leave me anything. I was
Rude.
like, I know. It was kind of messed up.
Should have bought her something.
I told her when I got out, I'm like, you make sure you get yourself some food. Other than that, yeah, that's about it. What about you?
Tyler and I joined a CrossFit gym.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
about to kill yourself.
Yeah, so I've gone to I think like 7 or 8 classes now. And
Good
I'm
on you.
just as weak as I was the first class. I'm like, I thought I was supposed to get stronger at some point, but getting there for sure. But the gym's awesome, and the guy that owns it, he's like super patient with me, which has been awesome. So yeah, so a little plug there. I think it's CrossFit Undeniable is the name of the gym.
CrossFit Undeniable.
Yes, yeah, it's in Westminster. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. I have some friends that do CrossFit, but I never thought that I would ever do it. And
You're gonna get like into it and like do the CrossFit like
competitions?
the competitions.
Nope.
Like pick up like the big like things and like try and roll them down the.
My goal is to just not like be shaking driving home afterwards. That's like my goal. Is to be able to leave and not feel like I'm gonna pass out on my drive home. It's a pretty good goal.
At first, I was like, why are you shaking when you're leaving work? And then I realized, oh no, you're talking about CrossFit. It's like, we're about to go on a different conversation if you're shaking when you're leaving work. That sounds horrible.
Okay, well, that could be a good segue into our conversation today. Sometimes if I leave the job site, I'm shaking from anger.
I think that's where I was like, automatically, I was like, and I'm like, oh, we're talking about CrossFit. All right. Yeah. Shaking leaving work is not a good thing.
No. So Kelley and I are going to dive a little bit into, just because we both have the trade experience, we wanted to kind of talk about what makes an inviting, welcoming environment for trades on a job site, specifically for the general contractors to take note of and kind of just see what our perspective is just from the trade side, especially being women on the trade side. So we kind of want to just chat and don't really have a script per se, but just say what we think and just have a conversation about it. So that being said, the other day, I actually had a conversation with one of my good friends. She's an interior designer, and it was interesting because we were talking about the trades not really having exposure to the design team other than through RFIs and, you know, through the contractor, and how awesome it would be to just be able to like hop on a phone call for stuff and just talk through, you know, if she's got questions or if I have questions. So I actually have like a group chat between myself, her, who's an interior designer, and then our other friend who also works for general contractor, and we literally just give each other like pointers and like tips and tricks, and it just kind of it's cool because it's like, why wouldn't we do this? You know, they have the knowledge that we're craving and vice versa. And something that I think, just being a trade, we don't really have exposure to what's necessarily happening like with the design team and with the owner, and a lot of the whys and what general contractors are asking us to do, and why certain things like are taking so long to get answers on. So I think, you know, just from a trades perspective, if a submittal's taking a long time to get answers, you know, just provide that information and tell us why. You know, give us all the reasons behind it, because if we don't know why, then we could potentially help if we knew why. If it was held up because of XYZ, we could provide solutions. So I don't know. We were just talking about that.
So the three of you are just like, since one's the interior designer, she's like, hey, how would you guys do this?
Yes.
And so she's just asking like more or less like a question about construction. Like, how would you actually do this to help her then within her process?
Yep. She's working on a healthcare project, and she was asking what the best solution would be for like wall protection or something, or what we've done in the past. And I mean, I was able to help her basically stay away from a really bad detail because of it. And I mean, that's what I think needs to happen more often, is the collaboration between the trades and the design team. But the problem is that we don't get on the project till way too late.
Yeah.
You know, and the design's already 100% done, or not ever really 100% done, but it's
not now. I think if we went back in time, the drawings look different 30, 40 years ago than they did now.
Yeah. But I mean, but if we were to get on way earlier and be able to like help kind of value engineer through all of that, which I know they're starting to kind of have those design assist type of projects, but it's still not as, you know, current and as often as it should be.
Well, and then there's a lot of work that even goes into it. Even if you come in early at like a design assist phase, there are details that have already been locked in. And it's still a lot of work to just go through, no, this is how we should do it. This is how the manufacturer wants it. Or, you know, that detail is probably pulled. Probably, I say this, my opinion, I've heard that they get pulled out of just like a database of something similar, and they know it's going to need to be changed. So it's all the work and the paperwork that goes into that, and the time and effort to write an RFI to change it, when, you know, if there would have been a little bit more time early on, you wouldn't need to, right? Instead of just pulling from a database. So I mean, I think that's a change of the industry, of putting more on the trades sometimes to figure out the right details, to figure out the correct way to do it, to get with the manufacturers, which we know, go out on a job site, how many PEs are there for the GC? How many PEs are there for a trade partner? And we've both been in those situations where it's you. Maybe you're the PE or you're the PM and you have 5 or 6 PEs coming at you from the GC side, asking you, what's this? What's going on here? Why aren't you doing this? And it's like, how do you actually ever get work done? Because there's so many people coming at you and you're like one person. So it's pushed farther down the line, which we are the experts, right? We are the construction experts in regards to that specific area of work that we're talking about. We're not given the time to really evaluate it. And I would even say, yeah, if you brought us on for pre-con, but how many companies really are putting their superintendents or foremen early on in a pre-con to look at the drawings and look for all of that from a trade partner side?
Well, that's the problem is like, I mean, it's because they're on projects that are currently going. It's kind of a little bit of a loop because you have projects that are on fire because they didn't get us on early enough that the superintendents are trying to put out the fires. You got new projects that are coming on where we could potentially be taking the superintendents and like asking them to help early on, but they're too busy putting out these fires. So then it's going to repeat itself on this new project, right? Like it's a constant loop of that. And not only that, but having multiple PEs for the general contractor side and only 1 or 2 project managers essentially on the trade side is they don't really communicate either as much. And I know that it depends on the size of the project, it depends on the company and how they do that, but I think a lot of it too is that they're not empowering their project management teams to understand that they aren't the experts in the subject matter, and that instead of asking me, why is this not done, try to learn about what we're doing and understand the full process. And I understand that like a lot of trades don't just offer that up right away. You know, with my company, we do a lot of that up front. We try to teach, you know, when we're on a new project, especially with a new general contractor we hadn't worked with before, we try to teach them from the beginning, like these are our processes and this is how we give you all of these answers. But a lot of trades don't do that.
No, because not all of them have the capability, the capacity, or, I mean, it probably comes down to capacity to do that. But I think I've made the comment that every new job site, I'm training a new project engineer on how I need to put submittals together, how long different submittals take to get done. So it's tiring after a while to constantly be doing that, because just submittals in general can be a long process depending on the submittal. And I hated making multiple submittals for the same spec section, shop drawings and like just material product data. I don't want to separate those two because my material product data may then have every damn thing in the world attached to it because I don't know what I need yet until I get my shop drawings. I have an idea roughly, but I don't know it 100%. So I'm sending a submittal that may end up with 100 more questions because I'm not specific in my submittal. And it'd be like, oh, when the shop drawings come out, it'll tell you. So now what was the purpose of hurry up and getting it? But usually when you get a contract from a general contractor, it's, oh, you need to have submittals done in 2 weeks. Well, depending on the trade, that's not possible to have done.
No.
So then you're getting project engineers who are getting pushed from their team, get these submittals, which I understand the why, but it's like, I can't move any faster. And that can be very frustrating to have to constantly explain to people like why I don't have submittals done.
Yeah.
And then that frustration they're getting because their job is being looked at. I mean, most of these PEs are fresh out of college, right? So they're 1 or 2 years in, and so they want to make a good impression. And it's an awkward situation to be in sometimes.
It is. And that's the kind of stuff, those little things are what make and break relationships too, like on the team. The beginning of the project where during the submittal process, depending on the communication between the general contractor and the trade, that can typically kind of set the precedence for what the rest of the project's going to look like.
True.
And so, you know, on the trade side and on the general contractor side, just knowing that we're both under the gun of whatever that looks like. And, you know, that kind of goes back to the schedule being expedited and all of that, or not expedited, but unrealistic to begin with. But that's why I think it's so important, especially for the interior trades, is get them on as early as possible. Like, obviously I know that the steel and the concrete and like the MEP trades are taking precedent at the time because that's all you can focus on. And I understand that there's, you know, a lot that goes into that, so they can't really focus on interior trades. But if they can get us on earlier, I think it would make all of our lives a lot easier. And not only that, but we can kind of help push the rest of the project.
Right. Well, and it goes back to contracts and what you just said. They're going to focus on earthwork, steel, concrete if they do not self-perform it, and MEPs. That's what they're going to focus on first, and working on contracts first there. They probably haven't bid everything out, right, to all the subs that they want to all the trade partners that they want to. So that could be that time takes into account of like, when do you bring people on? I would rather be brought on early. I think one project that was almost a year before, but that also puts me as like, okay, cool, a year. I got a year to figure it out, but I'm not thinking about it for till like month 9 or 10. Also, because I'm on one project, 2 projects, 3 projects. So who is from the trade side who's taking on that stuff? And I think that's also a thing that not everyone on the GC side sees, that subs they're working multiple projects usually. So yeah, I'm the project manager, but I've got other things going on. You are not my main focus. And that's really, I know I've had that, like, you need to give me the attention. I'm the most important project this week, and that's super hard. I've had like similar comment made to me about, in my history, about, you know, focus on me. And I've been on one project only, and that's super helpful. But when you're onboarding to another project, that creates problems.
Yeah.
And it's hard to get everything done. And I think general contractors, project engineers, PMs, fully understanding that.
What do you think is a way that we can, as an industry, help push that, like help our trades and help our general contractors who are so busy and they can't be proactive, right? Like, we are a very reactive industry because we have so much work going on. Do you think there needs to be a value put in place on how much, like money wise, how much a project team size can actually take? Do you think that they should be adding more PEs and, you know, to kind of help push it? Like, what do you think the solution would be?
Money, explaining capacity worries me, because just because it's a $20 million project, it's not the same $20 million project as someone else has.
That's true.
It's not the same client. It's not the same owner. It's not the same design. 20 million could look completely different within the same company. Obviously, it looks completely different between you and I, right? We have completely different trades that we've worked in. 20 million is completely different in the type of scope, work, everything that you do compared to what I do, right? So that's extremely hard to explain capacity. One $20 million job could be a massive amount of prefabrication and then install. Another $20 million job could be you're just ordering material and then you're stick building. You're just putting it in place afterwards. That could take completely different types of management from a trade partner. So I don't, first of all, believe a dollar amount to explain the capacity is the right way. I think there should be a review of it almost every time. As you're bidding it, it's 20 million. This is what we've previously done. That's, I think, where history comes into play. What's a similar job that's like that? What did we spend on PMs? What did we spend on PEs? What did we spend on foremen? And I know that's hard. I think from the PM side, we do that. I don't know how on the pre-con estimating side, how much that gets done. I think it depends on the job.
No, I understand that. I think it really does just depend on, it depends. You need all the players to make a move for it to become less, what's the word? Congested, not congested. Like where you're just like drowning in projects, right? You've got to, it has to be more than just the trade, just the general contractor, just the architect, just the owner. It's got to be everyone playing together, understanding, educating each other. We've said in previous podcasts, like construction is just a huge game of telephone. And if we're not picking up the phone and telling our customer how we really truly feel about something and we're not being transparent, it's never going to trickle down the way it needs to, right?
I think that's a problem, is that we are used, I wouldn't say everybody, that we are used to doing what someone needs or wants in lieu of what is potentially the right thing. And or ignoring it in a way and hoping it'll just kind of work its way out. And us as trade partners, we don't have to be on site every day. So it's easy to like block it out and kind of just, oh, I'll figure that out later. We need to feel like we're in a safe space with the general contractor. And the general contractor, I think, needs that same feeling back from us, that we're not just that same trade partner PM that, is going to blow them off because we have 5 other projects, right? That follow through and that discipline and commitment to what you are working on important. But we've, as an industry, have to stop overloading everybody. I mean, that's an overarching thing. But on the team, if we can all understand, like, what else are you working on? Hey, electrical superintendent, electrical PM, what else are you doing? I just want to know, so I know what not that I'm about to hound you about your commitment level, just want to understand your commitment level so that I have that clearly defined from the start of the project. Like, how many times have you had those conversations? Like, hey, Mr. PM for the GC, I'm on 8 other projects. So just FYI, like, it's going to take me a while to get back to you, but I will get back to you. How many times do we have those conversations with all of our project teams? And when we say team, not internal, but internal and external.
That is such a good point because, there's been so many times where there's 5 meetings on one project and they expect you to be not only on every single meeting, but also be in person for every single meeting on the job site. And it's like, I'm traveling. I have another project in a different state. I have other commitments, and not that I am valuing those over yours, but I want to be a good PM for all of them, right? You don't want to just play favorites. We can't play favorites. They would be probably impressed with if they knew how many projects a lot of these PMs have, and they're able to commit and they're able to produce a really good product without them ever even knowing.
Well, that's like if I look at, my last 5 years, let's go, easily over 25 projects where, some general contractors, that's 2-3 years is one project. So right away, half of their time frame I've already done. Right. 12-ish projects, all different size, but that's a lot, right? So I think my first thing is, I feel like they ask that in interviews when you're trying to get the job. What's your manpower like? Do you have the manpower to do this? What other jobs are happening at the same time? Mr. PM, Miss PM, are you going to be on the job? Mr. Superintendent, Mrs. Superintendent, are you going to be on the job? Well, then it's a year later. A year later, I feel from my end, can be a massive change to the company, to the office, to the workflow within the trade partner. Just, that's it. And that could completely change. People could leave, people could join, like restructuring could happen. Why not re-ask all those questions right when you're starting on the project? Yeah. Kind of like that initial, like, they have like pre-install meetings or kickoff meetings. Like, let's have that full conversation. Let's get past just like, How are you going to make a change order?
Mm-hmm.
It's important, 100%, but where are you at? How much time are you really putting here? And don't say it maybe that way, but maybe just having that full understanding of what is the commitment here, so that I'm not sitting there going, what the hell, you're never here. Because I even have comments, oh, I know you won't be on the site like ever, to me. And I'm like, I mean, right now I'm here every X day.
Mm-hmm.
I've made a commitment that I will be here in person at least once a week. It's like, well, I'm making that commitment because it's important to me. And like, I know that's different from every person, every company. To me, that's long as we keep going. That's just my thing is understand that from day one. If you can make that commitment with your trade partners to understand their commitment, especially their office, and understand what else they're going on, and doing it in a safe, like calm, just conversation, I think that starts off with you're starting off on a good foot in building a good team with at least that trade partner or with all of the trade partners, understanding that right away.
I also think just because we're committing to something at the time of when the project is bid doesn't mean that the schedule isn't going to push. It's no fault to the general contractor. I mean, there's so many things, design changes, all of that happens that changes where we are in the schedule, and that's just the reality of it. That's the reality of construction right now. Hopefully it changes eventually, but because
that's what we're here for.
Yeah,
change the mindset.
But because of that, it causes this tension because we'd made commitments during the bid process or even like in our contract, and I know that we write change orders to change our contract amount and all of that, but we don't write clarification letters to change our dynamic of what we committed to in the project. And I feel like those kind of conversations need to happen. Yeah, I committed to this many guys or this much manpower, but now that we've shifted however many months and now we're trade stacked and now we all of a sudden went from 12 guys to 30 guys, I can't commit to that. Because I committed to the 12 guys I told you originally.
Well, hopefully you were getting a schedule that you can at least talk that too.
But that's exactly
how many trades do that well, right? Yeah. Not all trades respond to schedules well or at all.
It's almost like they feel offended. It's like there's this stigma or this like standard, it's the sub versus the general contractor in a lot of traditional projects.
Yeah.
That's just kind of how it's been for years and years and years. And because of that stigma, it's put sour tastes in both our mouths, so that especially if you've had a negative experience on a project with a certain general contractor and you're working on that same project, even if it's a different project team, you're still working with the same general contractor, you're gonna have a sour taste, right? So you're gonna automatically go into it, and vice versa. If a product team for a general contractor had a negative experience with a trade, they're gonna go into it with a negative mindset right off the bat, and that's gonna cause a slew of issues that can be avoided if you're open and clear with the expectations and everything up front, and not like, this is what I expect of you. It's, hey, I understand you're a human being and that you have all these other things going on. How can I help you make sure that everything goes smoothly on this project?
Well, and I think there's also when you respond to a schedule, you're about to have some form of a fight.
Yeah.
When you get a schedule and you've got 4 or 5 days to respond to it and you are like, oh, I'm trade stacked. Oh, this is this, and this, and you need to respond. As soon as you push send on that email, you're getting a fight. And it may not be a bad fight where we're all screaming and yelling, but you're about to have a conversation that not people want to have. And if you're not being communicative with your schedule delays before that email comes, that it's a bigger deal. So how many people just don't even say it because they don't want to deal with it? And I think that creates that animosity. That's a problem. If they feel that animosity already within the GC trade team, and they know that's going to be there, it's either, all right, let's go. Let's fight. I'm ready. Or it's, I don't know if I want to say anything.
How many times have you been in your experience on the trade side? How many times have you been asked by the general contractor when they're building their schedule how many days it's going to take you to do an activity in an area?
How many times?
Have you ever like been asked, other than like doing poll plans and doing lean processes?
So not doing okay.
poll planning or anything like that, but how many times have you just been given a schedule and said, this is your schedule, and you're given like 2 days?
A lot, I would say.
How do you respond
if we
to that?
take out poll planning and any of that where it is built into it? I feel like it's more common in exterior building situations than it is with the interior for me. So that may be just because of some of the exteriors I have done, that because it's so critical to roof coming on. And there's finishes on top of that. I don't know if they do it with then any other finishes, if there's brick on top of that, or if we're doing the full finish of it. But I feel like that's where I've had it. If it's a really simple exterior build, no. If it's an interior, 99% of the time, no. I love it when it would be like you'd have 2 of your activities combined and it's like 5 days, and you're like, it's completely impossible for that to happen in 5 days. So in traditional construction, it depends on the superintendent, I feel like, more than it is the company, and it's not very often.
But I'm wondering, the reason I say that is because, and I know we don't really want to go into like the schedule conversation in this podcast, but just if you think about it, how many of these trades are being asked how long it's going to take them to do a task, and these schedules are being built and handed over to the owner before we're even on the project.
A lot.
And we're in our durations are being committed already for us.
Mm-hmm.
And they're usually always too short.
So are you saying like basically because of that, potentially all trade partners are coming on with some type of anxiety and animosity because the schedule is already creating that frustration?
Yeah.
So they're already ready to fight with whoever.
Yeah, and I don't think it's like, again, I don't think it's the fault necessarily of the general contractor. I think it's just the process. It's the process that we have for traditional projects where we don't make that a priority. Like, if you really think about it, I mean, it's kind of backwards to me that we would make a schedule before we bring trade partners on that are actually physically doing the work. And the reason being is because they're thinking, well, yeah, we're giving you 2 days, but you just have to take the amount of people it's going to take you to do it in 2 days, and that's what you're going to... So you want 40 guys on for 2 days. That's not productive.
Yeah, right. But in hindsight, or not hindsight, on the other side, being devil's advocate, if you're the owner, why would I I can't give you money to sign on all these people when I don't even know if you can do what I want you to do?
Right, but I think that's where there needs to be more of a conversation around, let's create standards for durations. And I think I know there's like a lot of historical databases and stuff that a lot of these schedules are built off of. I don't think they're accurate. I think we need to come up with a better historical database.
We fluff. Us over here, trade partners, we be fluffing on stuff.
Well, that's the problem though, is because we don't trust. Like it's a lack of trust. We don't trust
each other.
It's a lack of trust, and that's where it goes both ways.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why if I feel like if trades were asked at the beginning of a project, before a schedule was officially, just like they do with budget numbers, right? They ask us for budget numbers.
Yeah, they'll ask
to make sure they dial in their costs. Why won't they do the same thing with the schedule? Before they commit to a schedule with the owner, they would ask us, hey, how long would it take you to do these durations? I know you have to give me a ROM or whatever. It might be a little fluffed, but wouldn't you rather having a little bit of a fluff schedule than have a really unrealistic schedule that you're putting in front of the owner and you're committing to?
Well, and then I wonder, I mean, there's some GCs, and I know we know people that would probably call us and ask that because we're friends with them. we have those personal connections with them that would, and you explained it earlier of, you have an interior designer and you said GC that you guys are talking about that, and maybe ask that. So there could be some of that happening, right? That some of these estimators are asking that.
But it's not the standard.
It's not. How there, for every one, there's maybe 5 other that aren't doing that. It's also experience, right? Over time, you are unusual that you have that situation right now, and it's probably because, when we talked about in our first couple of podcasts talking about our why and why we're doing this, you created a group of people from college that you guys have this like connection, and it's built upon more connections, right? Where maybe everyone doesn't have that, and so their connections are different. Like I have a couple people now, but that could also be a problem. Is, are people making the right types of connections to do that? But I agree with you on it. I think you're right. It's processes. It's not the GC is wrong. The trades are wrong. No. The owner wrong. It is a process that has been built into the industry for so long that everybody just does it.
Yeah.
And there are inherent problems with it, but we're all afraid to make those changes.
Right.
So it would be great. It's not going to happen. So how do we tomorrow make a better job site for ourselves tomorrow?
I think implementing lean tools, implementing pull plans, and doing them correctly, and not using it as a way of saying, well, you committed to this and now you're not making, well, like not using it to kind of throw it in people's faces either, using it for what it's supposed to be used for.
But that's trusting each other.
Yeah.
And how do we build trust on our job sites? If we're already going in with animosity and anxiety and getting a job, of trying to figure out how to do this job because the schedule's already what it is. Like, we would love all jobs to be like the IPD situations you and I have been a part of, but that's not normal, right? So you can, if it's a traditional project, you can still do pull planning. Pull planning can happen. Last planner system can happen on any project anywhere in the world, right? It does not need to be the IPD situation. But if you do not have trust with everybody, that the tool turns into what you just explained it as being, well, that's what you did. You better go do that. Now I'm going to hold it against you. Right? It turns into something, and then no one does pull planning correct anymore. So, I don't know. I say, oh, everybody go have beers, but I think it's more than that. I think there's a lot more than, like, let's have meetings and let's hang out. But it doesn't have to be like, you got to go have beer. You got to go get food. Like, to me, it's taking the time to, I learned at a project where, and it's all internal, but it's a project's doing once a week, 2 people from different parts of the team go do a safety walk together. And they're now going to start doing it with like the client.
Like have trades walking with the client. That would be...
it's a GC, but it's the GC is doing it internally, and now they're going to bring in the client. So like, once a week, Jenna, you're going to go walk with someone from the client. You're going to do a safety walk.
Yeah.
But you're hanging out together and you're learning that. You could do that same thing with the trade. You could go, okay. And I know safety does that, but like where is that intentional PMs going to walk together? That could be a thing. And it's the one-on-one. It's not all the PMs get together. It's one-on-one. It's and I'm gonna go back to it. Being there in person is a big deal.
Yeah.
I know we talked about earlier. It's hard though for some trade partners to be doing that. If it's a big, huge project, we're there 100%. But the ones that have, this is not their one and only 5 other, it's making it more like, what days can you come here? And let's find a way to have a connection with each of our team members, trade partner to GC. Trade partner to the client, right? To the architect. have impactful communication or walks or something. Oh my God, I'm just thinking about this, right? Wouldn't it be great if you could like walk the job with the architect, but like learning from each other while you're doing it? I think tying back to submittals, I love having submittal parties.
Yeah.
I'd rather do that than turn in a submittal and wait 2 weeks.
I agree.
Now that architect's in the room with me, that engineer's in the room with me, you're starting that connection sooner. I think submittal parties should be 100% a thing going forward.
You know what's so funny you say that is I was on a project where we kept getting revised and resubmit drawings back literally like I think 3 or 4 times. And the reason behind it was because they had PRs coming out that they hadn't issued yet, and so they didn't want to approve the drawings because they had changes to the drawings that were coming later. And we were able to sit down. It was kind of a little bit of a fight to, not really a fight, but like I think it was a teaching moment with the general contractor of like, this is why we need to do this. And we were able to sit down with the architect and literally do a page flip and say, okay, here's why we need these things approved. Are any of these PRs going to affect any of these areas? No? Great. Can we get approvals on just these things so we can get the stuff released, right? Because at this point, it was holding up releasing our product. And so we were able to have those conversations, and we were able to teach the architect or the interior designer, this is why we need this stuff. And she was so thankful. And, and after that, she was, not like she was going behind the back, but she was calling us, and we will let the general contractor know, hey, she's calling us to ask us questions. But it was, you get rid of that middleman, and you're able to actually have real conversations and get answers to things. So submittal parties is great, and you can have general contractors on there, so they're not feeling like you're collaborating behind the back. So
GC's always in those meetings, 100%. Yeah. Yes, 100%.
And then, in terms of making us or trade partners feel welcome when they're coming on the job site, instead of going right into sub meetings where you're saying, here's everything that's wrong with this project, start yelling at each other, maybe have a first 5 minutes of let's just chat, talk to your neighbor, ask what's going on. My company started doing this thing. It's like a well-being. Actually, it was one of our PMs that came up with this, which I think is freaking brilliant. He asked his team on a scale of 1 to 10, what's your well-being at? 10 being great, 0 being, or 1 being I shouldn't even be here. My mental health is so bad. And the same thing with stress level. And not that you go into depth and talk about.
No, it's just know where everybody's sitting.
Yeah. And I think that was awesome. And so we're going to start implementing that on our projects or just internally. But how cool would that be if we implemented that on projects and the general contractor was the one who said, okay, guys, how are all my trades partners feeling? Are you guys
you could just have something visual on the board and everybody gets their color and you could just move it. You wouldn't even have to ask and be like,
how many of these people are level 10 on stress?
Yeah.
There's so many it's the little things, asking me how my husband's doing or asking me what I did last weekend. Those little things.
When I walked in and I was like, how is your husband's job going? And then we went off on a 20-minute tangent about that.
Yeah, but that's what I mean is those little things, and it creates such a difference. One of my hardest projects, probably the most stressful project I have, is one of my best because the team is freaking awesome.
100%. I drove an hour and a half every day for a year and a half because I loved the project. I loved the team I was in. And we did have some hard times, but I loved what was happening there. So I didn't mind the drive.
Yeah.
And I think that's very intentional. Yeah. Going back to your thing with the mental health and well-being, in one of my meetings with the team I work with, they do a permission slip. Do you need a permission slip today? So one of them was this, I had and it was me. I said it. I'm like, I had a crappy weekend. And I'm just not here today. I'm here physically, mentally, I'm not at my 100%. That permission slip could be I didn't sleep at all last night. I'm just tired. Permission slip can be any of the stuff. It could just be I'm in my car driving, so I don't have my camera on. Right? It could be, the dogs are barking in the background. I'm with my kids. It could be whatever it is. if you're on like a Teams call, but it's very similar to what you just explained. And it goes back to everybody's like, oh, this touchy feely. But if I'm walking into a meeting, I mean, I'm looking at, if I know what kind of meeting it is, I'm going to look around. I'm looking at the body movements, how people are sitting. I'm going to know really soon, like, where people are at. So if you know, if it's like a trade sub meeting, right? We're just coming in a sub meeting and you're just like, you got like 20 guys in there. Oh, half of you are stressed out. All right.
Toxic
I know how this meeting could go. Yeah. You could facilitate it slightly differently. I think being aware, and even putting you on there, putting myself on there and just being like, this is where I'm at. I mean, I think that's being more cognitive of that we are people, that the work is not our life, and realizing that there's more to us, and making, like, I'm just making impactful ways to communicate. And there's some of us that are really bad at that. Like I'm bad with some of the social, like, how are you today? Smiling when I come into work. I'm really bad at it. I usually do not say good morning to people when I walk in. If I'm in work mode, I'm going straight to asking you a work question. I've had people text me because I'm like right away in the morning, I'm like, hey, I need you to do this. And the text back is good morning. Good morning, Kelly. And I'm like, oh yeah, good morning. Because that's not where I'm going. Understanding the team's communication, understanding how we deal with things so that you don't then take it like personally that I don't say good morning to you. Because I have had, God, it was a long time ago, but I had a foreman like be actively mad at me because I would not say good morning. It was brought up in my review. And I was like, what? I have some weird things about me, and that's one of them. And I was like, what? Like
because they want to feel like a human. They want to feel like,
and I don't
not that you meant it that way. But that's exactly the problem is those leaders, you know, because you were a leader in that situation. The leaders that are the leaders of our industry and the leaders of these projects, by not saying good morning and by not acknowledging people, you're also creating an example for everyone below you who is also not going to do the same thing because they think that if they do, they're going to be looked at as being touchy-feely.
Right.
As being the PE. I've had a couple projects where the PE is so nice and so, you know, just open and like makes you want to work with them. And then you have the PM where they're the polar opposite. And 100% of the time, I'm going to go to the PE. I'm not going to talk to the PM first. And even if it's about whatever, I think that, I don't know if it might go back into people wanting to play good cop, bad cop, but that doesn't really work either. Yeah. You know, I'm going to like respond way better to people treating me like a human being. And you can just tell the difference between the projects too. Like I've had projects that were super, super easy and the team was awful. And they were some of the worst projects I've ever been on because they treated me like I was just a trade. I literally was on a project where I was called my company's name. Like instead of
your name?
Yeah, instead of them saying Jenna, they said my company's name. And that's how they like referred to me as.
Oh.
I don't even think he even knew my name, to be honest with you.
I've never even heard of that before.
It was a superintendent on the job. But yeah, and that made me feel like crap.
Yeah.
Clearly, like, and I don't think it was going back to the woman thing. I don't think it was because I was a woman. He did that to everyone. He treated the trades just like that. And I can tell you that he has a reputation in the industry. Other people have know who he is because of it. And that is horrible. Why would you want to be known for that?
Yeah.
To be the superintendent that everyone's like, oh, I don't want to work with this guy. He's horrible. He's mean. But
he still has a job, so he's doing something right. So in his brain,
no, he's not doing something right. The company's doing something wrong by allowing this behavior.
But in his brain, he's doing something right to keep the job, and he's making money for somebody.
Yeah, he's using fear. Mm-hmm. Fear is his tactic, and that only goes so far. Fear is the tactic, and then that's when everybody's
walking around the job site talking smack about him.
Right, exactly.
But no one will say it to his face.
No one respects him. Yeah.
So yeah, that's very common, I would say, on job sites in general. It's it's just getting to it right away. If I've had a couple, even with my own teams, my internal teams, like heard some rumblings and I pulled that person in. He was it was just one of my carpenters. It wasn't anybody like, I don't oversee him when it really comes down to it, but I said, hey, you and me, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it now. Like, here's what I know. Here's what you know. Let's go through it. Mm-hmm. And again, it's like, let's treat each other with that respect. I think that just, we are pushed so hard. And when I say we, it's the industry. Mm-hmm. We've got to get projects done. We've got to work X amount. I was reading something the other day, after the recession in 2008, the construction companies saw that they can do the work with less people. And I will admit, in 2008, I was going to work my ass off to make sure I kept my job, right? So how many people and how many companies are still thriving off that? Going, I don't want to lose my job, so I'm going to work my ass off. And then you're creating instances out on the job sites that can be dangerous, can be uncomfortable, can be, creating anger, distrust, all of those things. And then, with COVID, I mean, you think about COVID, we had the exact same thing happen, mm-hmm. where everybody's like, well, we want to keep our jobs. We want to keep working. If you're working from home, do whatever. I mean, everybody's just trying to survive. We're not surviving, not thriving. Mm-hmm. I have a sticker on my desk that says that, surviving, not thriving. Though we
use humor too.
Oh yeah, 100%. So I've got the dumpster fire sticker also. Life is just a dumpster fire. I mean, that's how common is that. So I think it's asking more impactful questions, being together more. I was gonna bring up something else. I totally forgot. But I just think of some of the jobs that I've had fun on that were not IPD, mm-hmm. that were not lean. I didn't take these people from the trade side, did not take the GC out for drinks. I didn't take them out to get food. I built those relationships from being there, building them from, talking to those people. I am the person that after I kind of, because I'm weird with my questions and I'm not social like instantly, after a couple and I feel you out, I'll start asking more personal questions and getting deeper. It takes me a little bit. That's my communication style, but start opening up and meetings turn into something a little bit more fun. We know the meeting's at 8 a.m. Everybody's coming in at 8 a.m. So really just give 5 minutes for everybody just to like hang out and chill, right? Mm-hmm. Making time to see everybody when you're out there, not just bring food and walk away, being there and trying to see everybody, and also finding unique things that you can talk to each person about. And that's where how I've built my relationships that have then led to comfortability for them to come and talk to me and me go talk to them. I don't want to say just being myself, because that doesn't work for everybody. It's just, I have learned I have to be uncomfortable because I am not comfortable just making small talk instantly. I've learned how to do it, but I'm not comfortable still to this day doing it. Forcing more than work. And I think that becomes more. I remember what I was going to bring up. Learning together. Like, we don't, general contractor, you're going to have like someone come in and teach you something. Why don't you invite some of the trades? Why can't it just be like learning? Or when there are the OAC meetings, it's okay if the architect talks to us. Like, how many times are you like, we're doing the architect walk today, so here's what we're going to point out. Don't be on level 5. Just letting you know, and here's what we're going to show them, and Like, how many times is that common? That's extremely common. Like, where is that? That needs to get broken down. How do we break that down? If you have an OAC meeting and there's lunch, dude, invite like the PMs from the trades to come in. Like, let's hang out.
Yeah.
That to me is like a really impactful. So it's everybody just taking the time. And I know that's hard for us and it can take a while, but the projects I've enjoyed working on is because we've spent the time to get to know each other on both ends.
I think the projects that I've loved working on are just the ones that they make me feel like I'm a human being. Honestly, like if you're asking me about like asking me questions, if you're not sure about my scope of work and you don't understand how things work, call me and ask me. Like, why don't send it in a really aggressive email. If there's a problem that comes up, call me. Yes, I know, I understand the whole risk cover your own butt thing. You could send a follow-up email to make sure that our conversation is in writing. 100%. I get all that, but communicate over the phone, even if you can't be in person. Don't send all these aggressive emails. There's so many aggressive emails everywhere. You can't read tones.
Same thing with text messages. Don't send a bunch of aggressive text messages.
Yeah.
Like, stop playing telephone with like 8 people on a text message. Take the time to figure it out first. I think that's, again, back to our reactivity in regards to the industry. Is there's a hole, fix it. Well, but why is there a hole? Like, let's slow down. Let's understand it first. But let's walk it. Let's pick up the phone, talk to each other. I mean, we're so used to text messages and emails. It's the easy way to get out of it. But the tone is, you're right with the tone. Yeah.
So kind of recap some of the things we just talked about ways for general contractors to make trades feel more welcome and to also help strengthen those relationships would be bring your trades on early, have them come on, have them give their insights on the schedule durations, insights on what the lead times would be for submittals, get real, true durations from your trade partners. Try to get them on as early as possible so we could start that submittal process. Even if it seems too early, it's never too early. Have charrettes or submittal parties with the architects. Make sure your trade partners and the design teams and everyone that needs to be in the room to make those decisions is there. And just have them talk through the problems, like avoid the middleman situation. General contractors don't like to be the middleman to begin with, especially if they don't understand the scope of work fully. Make sure that your trades feel welcome in terms of asking them how their day is, seeing where their stress levels are at, kind of see where they're at with other projects that they're on, and just get a feel for how they are as humans. They might be going through something personally that you don't know about. Just ask them how they're doing, because that goes a long way and that sets the precedence for what the rest of the project is going to be like with that individual. Not just your PM teams, but your field teams as well. Your carpenters, your apprentices, all of the people actually installing the product. Try to get the client and the trade people and the trade partners in the room. Invite your trade partners to some of your OACs and have them talk with the clients and get to know them so that they can kind of, if they have questions, if the clients have questions, they can ask the trade partners directly. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I think there's like 3 projects right now that I don't think I've ever met the owner, just little things like that. And just communicate over the phone, communicate in person, just talk to your trade partners and tell them, be vulnerable. If you don't understand something, say you don't understand it. They most likely won't use it against you. I know that's a fear.
Yeah.
But there might be some trade partners out there who would, but that shouldn't be the standard.
Again, that's why we're here, because we want to change that.
Mm-hmm. What else, Kelly?
No, that was it.
Okay.
So, yeah. Thanks for recapping that all up. So we have heard some great things from people that have listened to our podcast so far that we really, really appreciate it. And we just want to remind you to follow us on Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, and we are on LinkedIn and Instagram. So go ahead and like us, and please share the podcast to anyone. We really want to get more people interested in changing the construction industry. If you do follow us on one of those podcast places, please leave us a review. It helps us get a little bit more notice. So please do that. But thank you for being here, and we'll see you again on the next one.